and welcome to this special interview. I am so excited today. I am parent coach Sharoya Ham, and I work with overwhelmed parents of teenagers who don't know what to do or what to say. And today I found out, or excuse me, today I want to talk about a particular area that seems to break down some of the parent-child relationship in some family. And so I have a special guest who is willing to share his journey. He grew up in a very loving, faith-filled home. And I just want you to hear his experience of growing up in this house that was loving, kind, and faith-filled, as I said, and how it transformed into a place where it was still loving, but disapproving, and it became not as warm as it was before. And so I want to introduce you to this gentleman by just sharing a few things about him, his background. He is a counseling psychologist in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a member of Therapy Group of Charlotte. He serves clients through individual and relationship counseling. He is a clinical specialist who deals with spirituality, grief, relational concerns, equity and justice, as well as LGBTQIA plus issues. He believes in the power of connection, authenticity, humor as a healing practice, and uses them to support his clients in their pursuit of a meaningful whole life. I want you all to welcome my friend, Colton Brown. So Colton, please come on in.
Hi.
Hi, Colton.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. Colton, did I leave anything out that you want to share that you do?
No, I think you hit it all.
Okay. Well, I do want to share with people that you do have a PhD in counseling psychology. And
I
you
do.
were kind enough and gracious to allow me to just refer to you today as Colton. But for all others, and normally I would respect you and give your title of Dr. Colton Brown. But for this occasion, I wanted to make sure that people understood you weren't coming to educate in terms of an educational perspective, but you were coming to educate from the heart. And so I asked for you to drop the title of doctor, and you kindly agreed. So thank you so much, Colton, but I wanted everyone to know and respect your level of education and professionalism.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. I appreciate it.
So Colton, I'm going to jump in because I know time is short. And I want to first ask you, before you read your letter to your parents that you wrote specifically for this occasion, I want to know, why did you agree? I don't know you well. I call you friend because you're so kind. I just enjoyed talking to you the first time we met online. And so I'm asking you, before you read that letter, just share, why did you decide to do this?
Yeah, so I appreciate you calling me friend. I appreciate that, and feel very connected to you as well. And so I think that I agreed to do this because I think that people need to hear stories that are complex, that are complicated, that are challenging, but that are still very hopeful. And I am a person of faith, and I think that God drops little nuggets in your life to say here's an opportunity for you to speak on what your truth is, and hopefully it can be meaningful to someone. And obviously knowing Dr. Jones and being friends with her as well was another thing that helped me agree to this, in terms of I will I will follow her to the end of the earth. Honestly, I just have so much respect for her, and so Knowing that she was willing to do this too was also kind of a trailblazing thing for me, as she has many, many times before.
Well, I'm glad you trust me with you and in delivering your story this way. I remember when I asked you, you're like, what, Sharia? Like I haven't ever thought about doing that. But you said that, like you just said, that when God drops something, opportunity into your life, you go for it. And you saw this as an opportunity. And in addition to writing a letter to your parents, we didn't quite understand like the assignment. I probably didn't say it right. So Colton actually wrote a letter to his younger self. And so I asked him to do both. And it was kind of strange that it happened, and both are just powerful. And Colton said to me this morning, I think it was a messy miracle. I've never heard of that term, but I do agree that it was a miracle that was not intended, but I do believe is definitely needed. So without any more delay, Colton, I want you to read the first letter, which is the letter to your parents.
Yeah. So folks, bear with me. I'm going to be looking down and reading it off my phone. I get a little nervous when I read in public, so bear with me if I have some stutter steps here. But I'll just jump into it. So the letter to my parents. Mom and Dad, I'm going to say something you have known for a long time. I'm a queer person. I know you don't agree with this, and I am actually pretty certain you hate this part of me. I'm not fully sure you've ever felt close to a person who is LGBTQ+, and if you have, you've never admitted it to me. We all have done and said things that have significantly hurt each other. I know on my side, I've lied, hid things, and avoided you both because I know there's so much of who I am that you don't accept. One of my biggest regrets in life is the pain my actions to hide have caused you. I'm not apologetic about who I am, but I do apologize for the harm I've caused through my secrecy at various points in my life. I know on your side, you've said things that have severely hurt me. Mom, I'll never forget you telling me I couldn't be a counselor or psychologist because I needed counseling. Dad, I can't count the amount of awful things you've said to me. I've never felt more dehumanized by anyone in this world. Despite these things, I love you both, and I know you both love me in your own ways. I don't expect you to change your beliefs, but if you could hear me out, I'd like to share some potential ways that I could have felt safer letting you into these intimate parts of my life. The first thing I need you to know is that my awareness of my queerness started at such a young age. I remember being attracted to other boys as early as 7 or 8 years old. I don't think anyone who isn't LGBTQ+ realizes that we hear messages very early in life that start to devalue who we are. I remember same-sex marriage being a big wedge issue in our church, so much so that I thought I was going to hell even before truly accepting my identity. When I was young, no one ever said directly to me that I was going to hell, but I knew deep down I was like the people they were talking about. I raised my hand over and over again to be saved from my sins because of all the fear I felt. It never quelled the countless nights I laid awake thinking I'd die that night, how every creaking sound or thunderstorm somehow was a sign of something bigger and evil, and the anxiety that it took me close to 15 years to work through. So lesson 1 from this letter is to be aware of the messages you are sending early on, especially in the spiritual realm. How can you communicate love and value from God, not just condemnation and avoidance of hell? I found many ways to do so in my life, and I wish you would have protected me from what I feel is a toxic version of faith. Lesson 2, listen to my story before reacting. I know I appeared to have it all together, and that's what I wanted you to think when I was growing up. I was trying to earn your love while knowing that there was something about me that you would perceive as broken. Bullying is real, and it's hard to talk about it. I've never felt comfortable telling you that people called me the F word at school. I didn't feel comfortable telling you that people whispered about me and wondered if I was gay or that way or whatever label they put on people who aren't straight. Was I beat up at school? No, because I had the shielding of friendships and intellectual and athletic privilege, and you both were very well known, so others could only go so far. But I watched people with less privilege have much worse done to them. I wish I could have told you about the time someone wrote gay next to my name on the computer lab sign-in sheet. I wish I could have told you about the time someone yelled at me, "Hey, gay kid," at football camp in order to say something negative toward me. I wish I could have told you about the time one of the only out gay kids at school had the F word carved into his car by someone, and somehow the parking lot cameras just happened to not be working that day. Spoiler alert, it was one of the football players who was known to bully others and spread rumors about me. I wish I could have shared these experiences without fearing your reaction to the idea that I may be the queer, or that I may be queer instead of the wrong things happening to others and myself. On a separate note, from bullying, but still relevant to that period of my life, I wish I could have told you about my feelings for one of my close friends, who I'm pretty sure felt the same way about me, but could never admit it. I wish I could have told you that talking to him gave me butterflies in my stomach, and that when we were together, I wanted to hold his hand and take care of him because I am a caretaker like my mother.
Mm.
I think I could have felt safer if you could have listened to my pain and my feelings before diving into your own fear of who I may or may not be. Moving into early adulthood, I wish we all could have handled my coming out better. I know leaving a letter for you to find was not ideal, and I'm sorry. I was just so scared. I wasn't as courageous then as I am now. In fact, I was pretty cowardly. On the other side of the coin, comparing me to an addict, assuming that living in a metropolitan city was a negative influence, and making my coming out about how I somehow wronged you was also very painful. I'll never forget you telling me, Mom, that one of my sisters told me I was going, or that when one of my sisters told me I was going to hell in a very aggressive way, and you justified her reaction by saying I'd hurt her. I didn't do anything to her but tell her who I am. That's a big lesson I wish you and others could learn. My identity should not be seen as hurtful to you. It took a long time for me to feel like I could name my identity and admit it to others, and to be treated like I was causing harm to others by just naming how I felt was so difficult. The lesson here is to not make my experience about you. It's about me, and I have the right to be a bit selfish with it. I wanted to trust bringing you into this part of my life, even knowing you would not agree. I don't expect you to agree, but I do think it's fair to ask that my experience be allowed to be about me. Finally, almost done. The last lesson I wish to give is that throughout my whole life, you would see all of my humanity, not just the parts you significantly love and significantly hate. Early in life, I let you see only the things I wanted you to see in a search for approval. Since I came out at the age of 20, I've never felt like you, Dad especially, could see any part of me but my queerness. My other attributes, activities, and contributions to this world have never mattered as much as this one thing you don't agree with. Why does this deserve so much weight? Does my career as a helper not matter? Do my attempts to be a loving uncle to my nieces and nephews not count? Does the fact that I take on the responsibility for planning all the special experiences my sisters might have organized for y'all not give me some good grace? Do you truly believe that me being queer is so unlovable to God that you can't see anything else? I think these are questions that you need to wrestle with as much as I have, if you haven't already. To close, I think most of this really boils down to the fact that you could have listened more, talked less, and that would have made me feel much safer. Your feelings are valid and your views matter, but they always seem to matter more than mine, and that's not fair or equitable. I wish you could have told me that God loved me no matter what, even if you believe that God doesn't support my sexuality, and instead I got condemnation and continued messages about hell. Where's the love in that? So my request to you is to love me and see all of me. Childhood me who was receiving covert and overt dehumanizing messages, teenage me who was being bullied and was so traumatized by the world around him, early adulthood me who was cowardly yet still mustered the courage to try to let you in, and current me who loves himself and both of you. It was longer than I remembered.
I just need to breathe to take that in. Thank you so much, Colton, for daring to do this. First question is, Did you give this to your parents, or would you even consider?
No, I did not. And no, I wouldn't consider giving it to them. I don't think it would be something that they could hear. Um, no.
No. Okay. Well, I'm glad you allow us to hear, because there are children, young adults who feel the same way. And I hope that this has given them a place where they can say, me too. I've
Mhm.
had all these feelings. And to hear that you are loving yourself, are approving and affirming yourself, and that they can do it too. Um, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned in the beginning, you said, I want to tell you something that you've already known for a while. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so the reason that I wrote or started that way is because, I was writing this from my perspective now, and I'm 33 years old, and I came out to them when I was 20. And that's part of the reason I said something you've known for a while. And it's a very unspoken thing for some of my family, specifically my parents. And so it almost feels like it needed to be a reminder, like, hey, you've known this. And even growing up, there were rumors about me. And so I think that there were times where maybe my parents like kind of chose to ignore some of those rumors about like who I might be in terms of just like people thought I was, a little gay kid. I even have had a conversation with an aunt that is very affirming. And she told me, she was like, yeah, your other aunt and I used to talk about how we just kind of figured you were. Um, and so I think that it was just an unspoken truth for a very long time.
Colton, one thing that stood out to me, you said it over and over and over again. I wish I could have told you.
Mm.
And parents, I just want to encourage you, no matter what your child is going through, we should have this space where we want their honesty. I even talked to a parent the other day, and the child says, I'm mad and I'm angry with you. And she simply said, well, thank you for telling me, because I do want to know how you feel and what you're thinking. And that's basically what you constantly said in this letter. I wish I could have shared what I'm thinking, what I'm experiencing, um, and you know how I feel. And
Mhm.
so that was so touching to me. And then the last thing before we move to the letter that you wrote your younger self, um, it was about how you said, really, is this the only thing you're going to focus on about me? Don't you see all these other things? Do they not matter? Do they not compensate for the one thing that you don't like about me? And we spoke, Dr. Jones and I spoke about this and several things you talked about in part one of this series. And so, parents, if you're struggling in this area, I advise you to take a look at the part one of this Oh No, Not My Child, LGBTQIA plus. I will put it down in the comment section for you to check out. So thank you so much. I have my hanky. Oh, it's right here, because I don't know if I can go through the second letter. I managed to get through the first one without shedding a tear. I welled
Yeah.
up, but I don't know about this second one. So
Yeah.
this is a letter to your younger self. Colton, go ahead.
All right. I don't think this one's quite as long, hopefully, so I'll try to get through it. Um, so, dear younger me, I write this letter to you from a coffee shop in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I currently live in 2023. I'm 33 and have been an out queer person for more than a decade. Can you believe that? In 2 weeks, because I wrote this a little while ago. I will be helping with a talk on being a queer person of faith, and this letter to you is part of it. Although I've known I needed to write this letter to you for months, I've put it off until now. As I sit and reflect on the potential reasons why I have taken so much time, I can't help but feel like it boils down to fear, vulnerability, and difficulties thinking about certain parts of the past. I want to make sure I acknowledge any fear, pain, and confusion caused by the past while also not demonizing people who may have contributed. It's always a fine line that is not easy to tread. So with every ounce of courage I can muster, let's dive in on what I want you to know. First, please know you'll be okay. I know you're anxious, fearful, and that there is trauma going on around you. I remember the fear instilled in you by the church you go to and the town you live in. The message from the church is that people like you go directly to hell, although you'd never admit to being one of those people. I know the town around you is small. People don't encourage different ways of thinking and being, and many, in fact, outright belittle and degrade the different. I know you've been called the F word already, and I know you have witnessed worse happen to other people like you. I know at the age of 7 or 8, you told one of your sisters you thought a boy was cute, and she said, "You can't say things like that," with a look of shock on her face. I know you've never admitted to anything hinting at your experience or who you are ever since. It's a confusing time because despite these experiences, you love many aspects of your church, your hometown, your family, and your life. There are people there who love you and support you in many ways, even if you fear they won't accept the full you. One thing that definitely stands the test of time are some of the friendships you're currently developing. You'll come out to many of them before telling others in your life, and they're going to be so supporting and loving. Certain members of your church and family are going to come around to loving all of you, even if it doesn't always look exactly how you want it to look. You'll be okay, better than okay. You're going to live such a fulfilling life, and it's going to take you some time, some mistakes, and some difficulties, but it all gets you there in the end. Secondly, I want to be real with you. Dad and Mom still have never come around, and they may never. They do love you, but they won't affirm this part of you no matter how hard you try. I know you're working hard to earn everyone's love through academic accolades, sports performance, leadership roles, and church involvement. It doesn't change what happens when you finally tell them you're a queer person. They're going to say some hurtful things. You're going to do some things that hurt them. You will lie, you will hide, and you will have those mistakes used to justify negative opinions about who you are. Please don't internalize your mistakes or their words. Dad especially will say some really awful things to you in about 15 years, and your relationship will never be the same. Sorry, I lost my spot. Oh, there. I know you feel the start of these judgments and fears at your age and are terrified of what will be. And again, being real, some of those fears are very real and valid. You know what's beautiful though? It eventually doesn't matter as much as the gratitude I feel for what I have. I now love me. Many family members and friends love me in an all accepting way. And even Dad and Mom love me in their own way. I love them too. I haven't given up on them to this day, and I still try to make them see my full self, and maybe at times they see it. There's a lesson here for what will eventually be your general perspective on others. Let's never give up on them. Finally, remember that part I mentioned in the previous paragraph about trying to earn everyone's love through all those activities? Look, it's all a disguise. Yes, some of those things genuinely interest you and are worth investing in, but I want you to know that you don't earn love. But you get to experience love in so many forms. You have the most loving friends anyone could ever ask for. You have some excellent family members who love you deeply, especially your sisters. Most importantly, God still loves you. Yes, you are questioning whether or not God can love someone like you. I've now got 33 years of anecdotal evidence that God can love you and bless you so deeply. In about 3 years, you're going to realize you disagree with many of the teachings and tactics of the church you currently attend. You're going to fear anything and everything as a sign that you are doomed. You're going to have friends who refuse to attend your church because they're scared of it. And that all makes you want out. You'll have an even deeper crisis of faith in about 6 years and question the entire faith and stop going to church because you don't feel safe. Luckily, shortly after, you'll attend at least 4 churches that give you hope. Churches that don't use fear as a tactic, churches that aren't married to a specific political ideology, churches where even if they don't fully support LGBTQ plus people, they're not going to make you feel like who you are is the evilest being to walk the earth. Your faith will be renewed, your understandings of God will shift and change, and your spiritual life will no longer be about avoiding hell and will be replaced with loving the marginalized, working for justice, and taking good care of others. Yes, I still feel triggered by religious trauma at times, but I much more often feel a sense of peace in my faith. Some of that comes with age, and some comes from years of therapy and pursuing relationships with Christian people who I have witnessed as having the true heart of God, or the true heart God wants us to pursue. Let me wrap this up because I'm sure you have a practice, meeting, or rehearsal to run to, as you always do. Here are the takeaways. 1, you love others so deeply and are loved very deeply by God and community. 2, you're queer, and that's just fine. It's better than fine, it's beautiful. The real you is beautifully and wonderfully made. 3, all the questions, ask all the questions, have all the doubts, feel all the negative emotions, and keep moving forward in your authentic self and faith. Be well, young Colton. You deserve everything good that is coming your way. Oh, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
As I said, I'm going to breathe.
Oh,
I had nothing to say right away. I think the lines or 2 lines that stuck out to me is you're going to be okay. And I want adults to, whether it's your child or some child you love that's in your life, to say those words, it's going to be okay. And as you mentioned, it's not about us. If only we could allow people to live and work out their relationship with God within themselves, just keep doing it. And I love how you just said your position has changed with, or your relationship with God has changed over time. And that's with all of us. And I think we also mentioned in that in part 1, Dr. Jones said to parents, it's not all about you. And I think this is what you're saying is, Mom, Dad, when I was going through, it wasn't about you. It was about me and me trying to work through what I'm going through and try to figure out what these feelings are. And so there was one other thing you just said, that you don't have to earn love. And that to me was just powerful, that you came to this place that you do not have to earn anybody's love, including God's. And what a wonderful place to be. I think it resonates from your entire being. Let me ask you this. Were you going to write this letter for the presentation that you're going to do that's coming up?
the presentation coming up.
Yeah, I think you said you're doing a presentation. Oh, it was this presentation that you were writing.
Yeah.
Yes, you were writing. Okay, so a question here is, would you share this? Well, I guess you've shared it publicly already. Would this be something you would keep and share with other people in maybe some of your other presentations?
Yeah, I think so. So I have some really good friends who I actually shared both letters with, and um, they they resonated with the experience. And so I think that telling stories like this is really important. And so I'm probably gonna keep this for a long time and have it in my back pocket with me.
Awesome, Colton. I know I said I'm going to keep you just for 30 minutes. It's 10:30. Can I just run over, I think, 2 minutes? That's all
Of
I need.
course, yeah,
And that is
absolutely.
simply to say, I think I just remember the strong feeling I had after I spoke to you, the first call. And I was like, okay, I want someone who comes from a religious family. I don't care what faith, but they experienced where their parents did not agree and things just turned around. And so I was basically saying, Colton, what kind of parents do you have? How, how religious I was really trying to get to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said,
Mm-hmm.
well, my parents take the spiritual gifts test every year. You said something like that. I said, oh, you really from a good Christian background. I mean, if they're taking this test every year. So that we laughed about that. But I think it was like this hurt I walked away with, because all of this joy I had in talking to you, and you shared with me that your father had really not spoken to you in, I think, like 20 years. Or, I
No,
mean,
so
he speaks to
since
you, but I think what you said is he hasn't spoke to me in anything else about basically my sexuality. Am I getting it right now?
yeah, since I was 20 years old. Yeah.
20, since you are 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I think when I walked away from the call, I just go. I know there's parents who do this, but how? I really felt, for some strange reason, how did I get to experience who you are? In a matter of 40 minutes, we shared a call, I guess. And I just thought you were such a great person. And then I walked away thinking, but his dad doesn't know it. How do I get to enjoy someone else's child, adult child, and he doesn't? And so this is why I think I came to that point of, could you write a letter to your parents? And I think you basically said what I felt like. You are a whole person, and there's so much of you that is so awesome. And how could anyone not want to be around you, not want to enjoy what you bring to life? And so if your dad ever found this video by happenstance, I want him to know I enjoy your son. And I hope one day you can fully enjoy him too.
Thank
Thank you
you. I
so much,
appreciate that.
Colton, for sharing your heart and your time.